Welcome back. We have some very interesting dynamics happening right now in our US housing market. So for example, housing inventory or the number of houses for sale nationwide is actually still increasing, which is highly unusual. This is based on data from altosresearch.com. But in today's video, I'm going to touch on that, but also the latest trends we're seeing right now regarding home prices, housing inventory, the share price reductions, and much, much more, based on my own analysis of Realtor.com's latest data just announced a few days ago. So let's go ahead and dive right in. I have a lot to share. This is a report from Realtor.com just announced on September 28th, which I did not even read. Instead, I'm talking too quick, quack. Instead, go to Realtor.com /research/data and click on that link right there. It takes you more or less to this information. So let's talk about what happened for the week ended September 23rd. And let's first talk about asking prices. So asking prices nationwide increased by 1.1% compared to the same week 1 year ago. This is kind of interesting because during the weeks ended June 10th through July 15th, we saw decreases, not a huge decrease, but in the range of 0.2% to a decrease of 0.9%. Whereas right now we're up by 1.1%. So over the past, or let's just say ever since June, really, asking prices have been relatively flat. In other words, not a lot of movement going from down by 0.9%, now up by 1.1%. In my personal opinion, one of the reasons why we're not seeing a sharp pullback in asking prices right now is due to two main reasons. Number one, limited inventory levels. In other words, we have approximately 45% fewer houses for sale nationwide compared to the same time frame in 2019. And also we're well below 2018 as well. That's number one. And also number two, home prices were falling much faster at this time last year compared to this year. And that's why we're seeing asking prices still up compared to a year ago. Like I mentioned right there, will this change due to the rapid rise in rates going from 7 to about 7.6% in late last week? The highest rates we've had going back to approximately the year of 2000. So will that change given the rapid rise in rates? And of course, I'll definitely keep you posted because I would imagine that we're going to see a sharp pullback in closed home sales for the remainder of the year due to rates, but also due to seasonality. Let's also talk about housing inventory because last week, inventory levels decreased by 3.7% year over year. That actually marked the 14th consecutive week in which inventory levels decreased on a year-over-year basis. In other words, we're not seeing enough new supply hitting the market, and that's why, one of the reasons why inventory levels are down on a year-over-year basis. That's number one, but also number two, also due to the fact that inventory levels were skyrocketing and during the second half last year, whereas this year, inventory levels are relatively flat, or I should say they're only up slightly compared to the start of this year, which I'll share with you guys here in a little bit. In fact, let's just talk about that right now because inventory levels are only down by 5% year over year, according to my own analysis of altosresearch.com's data. 1 year ago, we were at 557,000. Now we're at about 528,000, a decrease of 5%, which is much different than the giant gains we saw in late February this year, increasing by 76%. Now we're actually down by 5%. And on top of that, we actually been down compared to a year ago for at least a month now as well. So there's a few things I want to touch on regarding inventory levels. So when looking at inventory right now compared to the start this year, this is the gain of inventory levels year to date so far. We're up by 57,000 houses for sale. So we have approximately 57,000 more homes for sale right now compared to the start this year. That represents a 10% growth rate year to date. Compare that to what happened last year, though. It's just crazy the differences here. At this time last year, we saw a gain of 265,000 more homes for sale compared to the start last year. That was a giant surge of 91% compared to only a 10% gain this year. So inventory has been increasing very slowly ever since April, but we're not seeing this sharp increase like we saw in 2022. On top of that, we have approximately 45% of fewer homes for sale compared to pre-COVID levels. In other words, we're missing approximately 430,000 homes for sale. So we have approximately 430,000 fewer homes for sale right now compared to the same time frame in 2019. Just absolutely crazy. As you can see right here, here's inventory levels right now, a little bit below last year's levels, but still higher compared to 2021, but roughly on par with 2020. However, though, when looking at the levels right now compared to pre-COVID levels at 528,000, we had just under 954,000 homes for sale. And then back in 2018, around 956,000. Now here's something I want to show you guys because I've been showing you this sharp increase in inventory levels last year versus a small increase this year. But take a look at this right here. Let me just zoom in. So we started the year at around 471,000. It decreased to 405,000 in mid-April. Now it has been increasing ever since then. One thing I noticed though is that the sharp increase over the past 2 weeks here. So inventory levels have been increasing, but increasing very slowly. 451. So yeah, increasing by about 8,000 to about 10,000 homes for sale. But over the past 2 weeks here, it's been increasing at a sharper clip compared to previous weeks here. If I had to guess why we are seeing this sharp increase of inventory, which is highly unusual because inventory levels should be decreasing, not increasing at a faster clip compared to the spring months this year. But if I had to guess, the reason for this sharp increase is due to 7% plus mortgage rates, which is causing a lot of home buyers to sit on the sidelines because of these elevated rates right now. And therefore, because of that, we're seeing fewer home sales, of course, because a lot of home buyers are either waiting out on purpose because they want to wait for more affordable conditions, or they're being forced to due to the lack of housing affordability due to the rise in prices over the past 12 months or so, and also due to the fact that rates have increased greatly as well. Now, here's something I found to be very interesting is that even though inventory has been increasing at a faster clip over the past 2 weeks now, new listings are still falling. In fact, last week it fell more. So 2 weeks ago, we were down by 6% compared to 12 months ago. And last week it fell by 7.5%. That, by the way, marked the 64th consecutive week of year-over-year decreases dating back to early July of 2022. So it's pretty wild to see that inventory is still increasing even though new listings have been decreasing on a year-over-year basis. One thing that's different though compared to the late summer months though is that we're only seeing single-digit decreases for about a month now. Before that, we had 16 consecutive weeks of double-digit decreases of new listings. So in other words, new listings were falling much faster last year due to the sharp rise in rates. Because of that, in about a month or so, I would imagine the year-over-year change in the number of new listings will likely turn positive. Because even though we have elevated rates right now, we're not seeing that sharp increase like we saw in 2022, going from 3 to about 7% in less than 1 year, which is absolutely crazy. Okay, let's also talk about how fast or how slow houses are selling, because over the past 3 weeks now, houses took the same time to sell compared to the same time frame of 2022. Before that, they took longer to sell for 58 consecutive weeks. Again, though, this is a lagging indication of our US housing market because this is based on a closed home sale. Let's also change gears again and talk about the changes in the number of reduced price listings, because last week it decreased by 21.9% year over year. That marked the 17th consecutive week of year-over-year decreases compared to the triple-digit gains we saw to start this year. So in, I think it was December through March, we saw gains over 100%. Now we're actually down by 21.9%. In my opinion, this is negative ever since June due to two main reasons. Number one, we have very limited inventory or a limited number of homes for sale. Therefore, we have fewer options of houses to buy, leading to fewer price reductions. And number two, price drops skyrocketed last year. In contrast, the share of price drops is relatively flat compared to the start this year. And speaking of that, here is a chart showing the share of price reductions nationwide according to altosresearch.com. The share right now is at 37%. This means that more or less 4 of every 10 homes for sale have reduced their asking prices compared to the lows we saw in the spring months last year when we only had about 17% share. So a relatively low level of price reductions during the spring months of 2022 when our housing market was just absolutely insane. But what we saw last year, though, is not what we're seeing this year. We're seeing this increase or slow increase in the number of price reductions, but not like we saw last year. Last year, we went from 17% in mid-March, and by the time we hit this time last year, it increased to about 41%. So at 37% right now, it's below levels compared to last year, but still a lot higher compared to 2021 right there, and also 2020, but roughly on par with 2019 as well as 2018. All right, that was a lot of information to cover in today's video. So here's a summary for you guys, and also some loose predictions of what may lie ahead based on the data we have today. But I'm also going to share kind of a summary regarding what happened this week with our US housing market. So number one, asking prices in the United States have been flat ever since June. Prices have not been dropping very much due to limited inventory and because prices were falling much faster at this time last year. However, will that change though? Because we've been seeing this rapid rise in rates going from 7 to 7.6% in late last week, going to about a 23-year high in rates. One thing that is for certain though, we're not seeing a giant surge of new listings, which is causing inventory to remain at very low levels. So we could see this sharp pullback in demand, but so far we're not seeing a surge of new supply hitting the market, which of course would be a recipe for disaster in our US housing market regarding prices. I'll definitely keep you posted because new listings are still relatively flat. They're not going down like we should be seeing this time of year, but they're not going down as fast as we saw in 2022. I'll keep you posted. Number two, housing inventory decreased by 4% year over year last week, marking the 14th consecutive week of decreases. Inventory has barely increased this year. We're only up by about 57,000 compared to the start this year. That's an increase of 10%. Compared to the giant surge we saw last year, an increase of 265,000 more homes for sale over that same time frame last year. Also, new listings have been decreasing year over year for 64 consecutive weeks. This continued lack of new listings is causing inventory to remain at very low levels, historically speaking, down by about 45% from 2019. Number three, the average 30-year fixed rate mortgage rate has been hovering around 6.8 to 7.6% since late May, based on data from the Mortgage News Daily. 1 year ago, we were sitting at rates at around 6.8%. Number four, the share of price reductions is roughly the same right now compared to the same week of 2018 as well as 2019. But it's much higher compared to 2020 and 2021. Number five, houses took the same time to sell compared to the same week 1 year ago, now for 3 consecutive weeks. Again, though, this is a lagging indication of our US housing market. So what are some potential huge changes ahead? And of course, a disclaimer, I am not a real estate market fortune teller. Number one, average 30-year fixed mortgage rates are about 0.6 percentage points higher today compared to 12 months ago. That equates to about a 6% decrease in buyers' purchasing power. And of course, we have a lot of challenges that home buyers are facing right now. Record low housing affordability, very low levels of inventory levels, and of course, elevated rates as well. One thing's for certain, we have a lot of uncertainty in our economy and of course, our housing market as well. Number two, housing affordability is a huge hurdle for buyers, especially compared to 2020, when we've seen prices increase by about 31%. And of course, rates more than doubled over that same time frame as well. In addition, on a national level, home prices, or the median sold price, according to Redfin, is still up by about 8% year to date so far this year, even though prices have been falling ever since July, a seasonal decrease so far. So therefore, we're seeing rising rates and elevated prices, which of course is making housing affordability even worse than it already is. In my personal opinion, I'll say this over and over again, this is not sustainable. We can't have all-time record lows for housing affordability, 23-year highs for rates, and not expect to see some sort of change in our market. In my opinion, we have seasonality and of course, affordability constraints, which should put downward pressure on prices for the remainder of the year. And this, by the way, is very much needed. Number 3, early signs of home buying demand have been absolutely all over the place this year. The most recent data we have from the MBA shows that the number of people submitting loan applications to buy houses decreased by 27% year over year. The current readings we have right now, which is for the week ended September 22nd, is on par with the lowest levels going back to the year of 1995. So in other words, we have a very low level of people submitting loan applications for houses right now. So therefore, it makes sense that based on data from Redfin, pending home sales, a measure of contracts being signed between buyers and sellers, has fallen by 13%, and new listings are also down by 6%. So we have low demand meeting low supply as well. Also, the National Association of Realtors reported on September 28th that pending home sales in August fell by 19% from August of 2022. But in that press release that I went over in my video last week, they didn't mention this, but the index, which is a measure of contracts being signed between buyers and sellers, which is called their pending home sale index, or their PHSI, fell to the lowest levels excluding April of 2020, the lowest levels going back to at least the year of 2000. So a huge pullback in contracts being signed for the month of August. Also, new home construction sales, which of course is a measure of contracts being signed between buyers and home builders. So this is really more like a pending home sale than anything. This actually fell by 9% in August, well below the forecast. So home sales absolutely tanked for the month of August. So it appears that rate buy downs may be becoming less effective right now for home buyers in order to sign contracts right now to buy a new house. It appears our housing market is highly rate dependent though. And of course, the data coming in is ever changing. And of course, real estate is local. Number 4, sellers and buyers have exited the market, leading to a dip of new listings and of course, pending home sales as well. The lack of new supply or the lack of new listings ever since last summer has led to inventory remaining at historically low levels. If homeowners continue to decide that now is not a good time to sell their houses, that of course will limit inventory levels. The direction of our US housing market, in my opinion, will depend on unemployment rates, mortgage rates, inventory, and the balance between supply and demand. And number 5, this is the most important one. I appreciate you guys watching today's video, of course, for supporting my YouTube channel. If you guys haven't subscribed just yet, I invite you to do so. Of course, have an awesome day as well. Check out that link below if you guys want a real estate agent referral, or go to realestateteamfinder.com. I'm screwing up this outro. I hope you guys have an awesome day. I look forward to seeing you on the next video.